Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this webinar on how to ace GMAT Quant, more specifically the arithmetic section of the GMAT Quant or GMAT Focus Quant. In this webinar, we're going to focus just on arithmetic. We're going to focus on taking it from extremely low ability to that 90th percentile, which is around that Q86, Q87 mark. And then in the following webinar, we're going to really talk about algebra. Again, the process is going to remain the same. My name is Rajat Sidana. I'm one of the co-founders of EGMAT, and I'm going to be your host today. As you can see, the name reads Payal Tandon. That's because I'm here just for the first 5 to 7 minutes, where I'm going to talk about your overall GMAT study plan, and then we're going to transition over to essentially the arithmetic part of this webinar. So with that, without much further ado, let's get started. I'm going to start sharing my screen here. I think this is an appropriate layout overall. Just give me. All right, you guys should be able to see my screen. The screen should say Prakash, welcome back. So in this part, we're going to talk about how to build your study plan. And at GMAT, everyone builds their study plan. I'm going to take a case study of someone who's aiming to go from a 575 to, let's say, a 685 or so. So let's go to study plan section. This is what you see right now is what we are aiming to achieve. And so to get started with a brand new study plan, I'm going to click on create a new plan here. I'm going to type delete. And create a new plan. It seems that the screen isn't refreshing at your end. Most of you seem to see still Prakash, welcome back. Let me make sure that, that I check that on YouTube. Just give me 1 second. Yes, it seems that the screen is still stuck. Let me stop sharing and just share my screen once again. Okay, and all right, I think this is the right screen right now. Yes, we are real time. So we're going to start with create your plan. I'm going to put in the target GMAT score. Let's say 685 here. Let's set this as target, and it tells you that you're aiming for that 97th percentile. Then you're going to look at your current GMAT score. Let's look at 575. That gives you that good 110-point improvement. And let's say your baseline is the GMAT Sigma X mock. You could take the official GMAT or the MBA.com mock test. You'd get all the same metrics or the same data points that you need for inputs here. Let's move forward. So again, this tells you you're aiming to go from a 62nd percentile to a 97th percentile or 110-point improvement here. So then it asks for your current score. Now, we are here in a quant webinar, so I'm going to assume that relatively verbal is your strength over quant. So I'm going to say 81 as your verbal score, quant score as 77, and then DI. The system's smart enough to know that your DI score should be between 76 and 80. I'm going to put 78 over here. So with that, you can see your verbal, DI, and quant percentiles. Your DI score, which usually is a combination of quant and verbal scores, is driven by your verbal score over here. So the system understands your strengths, your weakness or weaknesses, and then determines your target scores based on that. So let's see what it recommends. So it says, hey, should aim for a 96th percentile in verbal, a 90th percentile in DI, and a 92nd percentile in quant. So you could go with this. This is a really good there's a really good recommendation, or you could move to another recommendation. Maybe you don't like having such a high quant score, so you could say, hey, I'm going to aim for an 87 in verbal, I'm going to aim for an 84 in quant, and accordingly it says, hey, you've got to be between 79 and 83, or so I'm going to say 81 in DI here. And it'll tell you this seems slightly more challenging, but I'm going to anyhow take it. It seems because I want to really leverage my verbal strength. So either way, whatever score you choose over here, the system will ensure that you always get to that 685 score. Okay, so with that, now we have chosen the target quant, verbal, and DI scores out of 90. Let's move over here. So at this time, it tells you this is your verbal journey. Your starting score is 81, your target's 87, which is 99th percentile. Your starting quant is 46th percentile, your target's 85th, and so on and so forth with DI. And it generates some initial time estimates. You can really see your verbal time estimates are about 51 hours, quant about 108, and DI about 48. Now, these are initial time estimates. As you provide more data, these time estimates get more and more precise. So we'll start with verbal. So let's say you're someone who's stronger in CR and not as strong in RC. Remember, your overall verbal percentile is 70th percentile. So we click on this here, and with this we get your verbal milestones. You get refined time estimates. So this assumes you're spending about 20 hours per week. So 3 weeks is about 60 hours over here, and I'm okay with this because these are good percentiles. If I have to get to 99th percentile, then you definitely you have to aim for these percentiles here. Let's do the same thing with quant. Let's move forward here, and then you're at 46th percentile. Let's assume you're slightly worse off in arithmetic, and you're slightly better in algebra here. With that, let's move towards quant milestones as well, and it refines those estimates. It's about 100 hours over here, 4.8 weeks at about 20 hours per week. You accept that. Let's do the same thing, repeat the process in DI as well. Again, remember, you're stronger in verbals, you're likely to do better in TPA and MSR. You're not likely to do as well in data sufficiency. And your GI and TA could be somewhere in between. So with that, let's hit those DI milestones as well. And as you provide more data, your time estimates become more precise here. So with this, you're going to see a refined set of time estimates. Again, slightly more in verbal and DI, and slightly less in quant. You can also really see here, because your starting abilities in verbal and DI are higher, you start with stage 2 of learning, where we diagnose your weakness and then work only on those specific areas that you're weak in. Whereas in quant, where your weakness, your recall, your starting ability is not as high, you start with stage 1. You make sure you build the fundamentals before you go on to cementing those fundamentals here. Now, at this point, it tells you the sequence of learning, and you could pick a different study sequence, but starting with verbal, then moving to quant, I think is excellent. You can really determine how long you'll get to that target score. So it assumes 20 hours per week, but you can truly customize it. Maybe Mondays are not as good days for you. You can put it as 1 hour. And Tuesdays, you can put in 3 hours here. Wednesday, you can put in 4 hours. Similarly, on Thursday, you can put in more time, but most people tend to go out on Fridays, so you can put it 1 or even 0 hours. And then maybe you can put into 3 study sessions of 2 hours each on Saturday. So your overall commitment goes up to 22 hours a week. And you set this, you pick a start date. As you pick a start date, you will get a tentative test date with these estimates. So what the system's telling you right on day 0 or day 1 is that you can take a test around that 22nd to 29th October, around that week over here. Now, you can pick an earlier date. You'll just have to increase the time commitment. I'm going to accept this, and then I'm going to understand the sectional journey. So it's going to lay everything out for you here in this case. So you can really see your verbal journey is for about 64 hours. Your quant journey, 5.4 weeks, is about 102 hours, and then your DI journey is another 67 hours or so. You can look at your verbal journey here. You can see when you start your verbal course, how many hours you spend on it, how long do you spend on cementing, and then how much time do you need to spend on just learning or cementing the basics in CR, and do the same thing in RC here. Now, these estimates include all sorts of test readiness, the time required to take mocks and everything. When you understand the quant journey, same thing over here, and you do the same thing with DI as well. And you're going to see all of this is laid out on a very nice calendar. So I'm going to finalize and execute your plan. And as you do that, this entire thing is laid out on a calendar. You can see this is 22nd. You said you're going to start studying from the 24th. So, and you said you're going to be able to put in 4 hours on a Wednesday. That's what you see over here. Now, this allows you to stay current all the time. If it so happens that you can't study on a particular day, maybe on this particular Monday you can't put in, you can make this a no study day. If, on the other hand, on some Mondays you do take a day off and you want to put in more hours here, you can do that as well. You can put in 6 hours here, And as you do that, the plan adjusts by itself. So overall, you always stay current. Okay. With that, we're at the end of the first part of this webinar. Thank you for this introduction to PSP. If you need help building such a study plan, you can write to me at rajat@e-gmat.com, and we'll be happy to help you. With that, I'd like to invite Payal to start the arithmetic part of this webinar. Welcome, Payal.
Thank you so much, Rajat, for that wonderful introduction. I hope all of you were able to get the sense of how personalized your personalized study planner needs to be. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them along. We are now going to get into the arithmetic part of this session. Let me just stop sharing real quick here and set up the system. First of all, tell me, how is it that you are finding quant? What issues are you facing in quant today? So tell me that, and then we will get right into it. So what kind of issues are you facing in arithmetic portion of quant? So in this session, what we're going to do is just to give you a brief understanding. We have three questions from number properties from arithmetic sector, from number properties part of arithmetic. And so you're going to be solving all three questions one after another. Then we're going to be discussing these questions. Now, the topics that these questions, the concepts that these questions test are relatively straightforward. The reason for that is that we did not want to add a whole lot of complexity from concept standpoint, so that we level the playing field, right? So the concepts are going to be easy, but what you're going to see is that how is it that you need to integrate all of your process skills? How is it that you should be reading the question statement? How is it that you should be breaking the question statement into smaller chunks? How is it that you should be inferring the information? And how is it that you should be retrieving the appropriate concepts from your concept arsenal in order to solve these questions? Okay, so that is what we're going to do. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you the first question. I do not want you to type in your answers in the chat, because I don't want to influence anybody. I don't want anybody to get influenced by what other people are selecting. And when I stop sharing, at that point in time, I want you guys to put in your answers. Is that okay? Okay with everybody? Thank you so much for that wonderful welcome, Shashikant. Really appreciate that. Um, all right. And hi, Subhansh. I have Shweta's question here. Generally in quants, I find hard to apply the logic I'm studying, but when I read the question, I couldn't get the logic immediately. How to sort this? Absolutely. We are going to be doing that today. You will see that in action in the three questions that we do from number properties. And if we have any more time left, we are going to do similar stuff with word problems. Now, with word problems, there is going to be conceptual clarity required. So again, we'll see how it goes. All right, so sounds good. And I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to share the window itself, just so, yeah, here it goes. Here's your first question on the screen. Again, I'm going to, as soon as I stop sharing my screen, at that time, you guys will put in your answers. All right, go ahead. All right, last 10 seconds, and then I'm going to stop sharing. And that's when I would want you to put in your answers. All right, put in your answers. A, B, C, D, E. Okay, I see one E. Let's get some more answers here. Another E, good. Everybody with E is good. All right, anybody who selected something other than E? Okay, there is one D, got it. Hetal is D, so now we are seeing. So we saw, let's count. 1, 2, so I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 E's, then I see 1 D, C. So it's a mixed bag. So I see some D's, I see some A's, but majority, but quite a few of you have selected over here. Okay, what's the basic principle behind this question? The correct answer is indeed E. So let me walk you through the process to be followed so that those of you who have answered this question incorrectly can identify why they have faltered. So I'm going to share my screen once again. Okay. All right, one second. Here. Okay. So the most important thing to do over here is identify what is the sample space given to you. What you have over here are consecutive integers going all the way from -10 to +10, right? Now, so you have to make a note of that. And what else do we need to do? We need to select 20 integers randomly with repetitions allowed, right? So you have total of 21 integers, and from those 21 integers, we need to select 20 integers, and they all can be same. What is the implication of repetitions allowed? That they all can be same. You can select one single integer multiple times if that is what is needed, okay? Now, what is the question asking? What is the least possible value of the product of 20 integers? So you need to minimize the product. Now, you have negative numbers here, and this is where as you read the question statement, you need to break it down. You have 20 integers, some of them are negative, some of them are positive. You need to take the product such that it's the minimum product. What does that mean? This means that the magnitude of that product needs to be the highest possible, right? And the sign of that product needs to be negative. Is that point clear to everybody? Because that's the inference that we need to draw, okay? No complex processing so far. You're simply reading the question statement, drawing appropriate inference that magnitude needs to be the highest possible here, and the sign needs to be negative here. Now, how can the magnitude be the highest possible? You take the largest possible number over here, which is either -10, again, in terms of magnitude, or +10. So you pick that, right? And how will you get negative sign? You have to multiply odd number of negative integers, right? That is what you will need to have, right? Select odd number of negative integers. Now, one possible case over here could be, and again, I'm just presenting one possible case. You could select 19 tens and just one -10, and that's going to give you -10 times 10 to the power 19, which means from magnitude standpoint, you have 10 to the power 20, and you have a negative sign, which is choice E, right? Now, you could have selected 19 -10s and one +10. You could have selected that as well. You could have selected 17 -10s and 3 +10s, right? So whichever combination you do, you have to make sure that you're selecting odd number of negative numbers and you're selecting as many tens as possible. And that's it. Choice E is the correct answer over here. Okay. So in this question, for those of you who answered it incorrectly, I want you to understand where is it that you faltered. Did you falter from translation standpoint? Okay. And the faltering point with translation could have been that you didn't read that repetitions is allowed. That could have been a possible thing. Okay. Or did you falter from the standpoint of not being able to visualize what the numbers are, or you weren't able to infer what the implication is from the question statement? So whenever you're reading a question statement, you always have to make, whenever you read the solution, you always have to make sure that you're able to identify why is it that you have faltered. Okay, so those of you who selected choice D and choice C, I believe you probably did not focus on the repetition aspect, which is why you thought you have to select a 0 and you ended up selecting choice C as the correct answer. Okay, those of you who selected choice D, again, you didn't understand that you probably didn't understand, you weren't able to draw the correct inference that you need to select as many tens as possible. Okay, so probably that's why you faltered over there. So again, very simple concept. All that's needed over here is that the ability to apply all these process skills in a cohesive manner. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some variations of this question. Again, as you're reading that, I want to make sure that you take notes, you draw appropriate inferences. Okay, so here is the first variation. Type in the answer. The data set has now changed. Instead of going from -10 to +10, now we are going from -11 to +10. So now tell me, the question statement still remains the same. Tell me what would be the answer. You will have to type it out. Okay, which one is it? Is it It's 11 taken 19 times and -10 taken once. So Kuldeep and Luis got it correct. Rosario, you may want to check it, check your answer. Okay, this one is not correct, Rosario. So I hope you understand, because you have to maximize the magnitude, right? Which means you'll select as many 11s as you can. Okay, right? So as many 11s as you can means you need to have one negative number, right? So you'll select one -10 and 19 11s, right? Oh, sorry, I changed the slide. Sorry, thank you so much. I didn't realize that. Let me go back here. Hmm. Variation 1. Okay, yes. -11 to the power 19 times 10. Yeah, so here also it applies -11 to the power 19. Yeah, so you're going to take negative. See, both are essentially giving you the same answer. You have to take the magnitude. 11 is the largest number over here from magnitude standpoint. So 11 to the power 19, and then you take, and that's going to give you negative, right? And then you take one positive 10. Okay. Now when you come to, so is that clear, everybody? You're going to take -11 19 times, and you're going to take 10 one time, right? Let's now move on to our next variation over here. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next variation. Variation number 2. What's going on? Why is it not moving? Hold on. Let me just stop sharing. Just gets stuck sometimes. All right. window. Okay. And okay, here. Now let's solve this one. This one is also the same. You're going to 11 19 times and you're going to take negative 10 one time, right? Now, this is the next question over here. I want you to answer this question. Variation number 3. Now read the question statement very carefully. Okay, this is variation number 3. So when you're putting in your answers, please write down variation number 3. You can write 3 dash and then give me the answer. A, B, C, D, E. Which one? Okay, Kuldeep says C. Anybody else for C? And why is that, Kuldeep? What's the difference between this question and the previous one? Indranil says C. Good. Indranil, your answer for the previous question was incorrect. So you may want to go back and check that. Okay, for question number 2, for variation 2, your answer was not correct. So you may want to go back and check. Okay, so yes, 0, why? Mansi is absolutely right, and so are others. I'm pretty sure that was the right thought process behind the answer being C, because now what we need are distinct integers. We cannot select the same integer twice. Okay, that's why, and over here, you will need to select a 0 because you need to have right, because you cannot really select odd number. You cannot get a negative number because you cannot select odd number of negative numbers here. Okay, so that is the reason here. Okay, so choice C is the correct answer over here. So good. All right, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the next question. So what have we learned from this one? What we have learned is that we need to be in complete control of the question statement, and we do that by continually drawing, utilizing these process skills. Okay, so now let's move on to our next question here. This is just a detailed solution. You guys already solved this question correctly. So we'll jump straight to our question number 2. This is the next question. Here, what you have to do is you have to minimize the sum over here. Okay, so go ahead and solve this question. I'm going to then I would want you guys to type in your answers. Once I stop sharing the screen, I'm going to start the timer here. I'll give you about a minute and a half to solve this, although that's too much time, but I'll be little easy on you, okay? All right, I'm going to stop sharing. Tell me the answers. A, B, C, D, E. So I see Okay. So I see a couple of C's. So Shweta is saying C, Hetal is saying C. Then I see some D's. D is 50. So Subhansh and Kuldeep. Then I see some B's as well, 91. Then I see another D. Okay. And then Indraneel is saying 59, which is choice C. So I see D has majority of takers and C is in a bit of minority here. The correct answer is choice C. So let's understand what is going on over here. Now, is there any concept over here which you're not familiar with? Frankly, not. Okay. This is not a difficult, the concepts that this question tests are not difficult at all. Okay. Essentially, what's happening is it's really a play of how is it that you interpret the question and how is it that you apply these process skills. So let's go through it. So essentially, you have these five integers, they're going from 10 to 99, right? So what does that mean? What does it mean that there are five integers and they're going from 10 to 99? You have a two, you have these five two-digit integers, right? So that's what it is. And yeah. Okay. So now what two-digit numbers, right? So whenever I see a question, what I try to do is I start to visualize the numbers, right? I pictorially represent as much as I can because that just helps my cells, my neurons kick in. Okay. So these are to be formed by using each of the 10 digits exactly once. What does that mean? That repetition is not allowed in such a way that the sum of the five integers is as small as possible. What we need to do is find what is the greatest possible integer that could be amongst five numbers. Now, what is it that we have to do? We need to make sure that the sum of these integers is as small as possible. Now, what is the repercussion of that requirement? That the sum of these five two-digit numbers is as small as possible. Tell me that over here. If sum has to be as small as possible, then what we need to do is we need to make sure that the tens digits of each one of these numbers is as small as possible. Okay, that's what we'll have to do. Now, can you put 0 over here in the tens place? No, you cannot. But what you can do is you can put 1, 2, right? You can put 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in the tens places. You can do that, right? Now, what is the second condition? The second condition is now the remaining digits 0, 6, 7, 8, and 9 would need to be placed anywhere over here, right? Now, what is the condition here? The condition over here is that I have to find out what is the greatest possible integer that could be formed. Okay. Now, what is the condition for greatest possible integer? You have 5, right? You will select the number that has the largest tens digit, which is 5. Now, what is the largest possible number that can be formed with the remaining ones? What will you place on the units digits? You will place 9 with 5, right? So 59 is the greatest one. So Hetal, 50 is not the greatest possible. I-50 is a possible number, but you also have 9 as a candidate here. So 59 is the correct answer. Okay. Got it, everyone? Absolutely. Instead of 19, use 10 and 59 becomes greatest. Absolutely. I mean, you could have 10, you could have 27, you could have 17, you could have 20. Again, all these possibilities exist. But all we care about is what is the greatest possible integer, which is where you have to draw the inference that I need to have the largest number possible in the tens place and the largest number possible in the units place. That's it. Okay. That is how your sum will be as small as possible because you've already figured out the conditions there, and you will have the largest possible number over here is 59. That's it. Okay. So now tell me this question, was there anything complex in it? It is a difficult question. Okay. It is definitely a difficult question. Thank you, Subhansh. The sum will remain the same because ultimately, whether you're adding 19, whether you're adding 19 to 10, or whether you're adding 19 to 50, or you're adding 59 to 10, the sum remains the same, right? So that number sense we all need to have, right? And we all do have that number sense. But it's just that applying that number sense in the exam environment requires you to be in complete control of these process skills that you have to apply, right? You need to be in the habit of drawing inferences as and when you are reading information. Okay, just pause. Many of us get in the habit of just getting to putting your pen to paper and solving right away. No, take a step back. Whenever you feel that a quant question, for that matter, whenever you feel any kind of GMAT question seems to be very difficult, at that point in time, you need to just take a step back and you need to pause and you need to trust yourself that I can definitely solve it. Okay. Kuldeep, you have missed a certain constraint. Remember, we can only, yes, thank you, Subhansh, we can only use one digit once, right? So you can either use 0 with 10 or you can use 0 with 2. You cannot use, you can either use 0 with 1 or 0 with 2, right? But you cannot use 0 all the way. Okay. So again, you just have to be a little bit patient. You need to go slow. You need to write down all the constraints. So Kuldeep, the reason why you are facing this problem is, in my opinion, you haven't really written down these constraints. You haven't really absorbed these constraints. Okay. So don't do problems in your head if you are not, if you're not able to comprehend and if you're not able to make sense of things. Okay. So I would strongly recommend that you write down things. Okay. Maybe once you get in the habit of drawing these inferences, then you may not need to write down as much as you would need to write right now. Okay. All right. So any comments so far about the questions that I have asked? I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to, in the meanwhile, actually let me see, I'll just proceed here. We're going to move to our third question here. Okay. Yeah, question number 3. Now, this is a very easy question, but there is a little bit of complexity here, which may throw some of you off. Okay, I'm going to give you a minute to solve this, no more than that. All right, so go ahead. Please don't put your answers here. Put them only when I stop sharing the question. Okay, a minute starts now. All right, put your answers, please. A, B, C, D, or E. Okay, so I see C here, C here, then Urja is saying E, then there is another 10 to the power 8. Let me go back. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to bring back the question so that I can see 10 to the power 8. So I see two C's, one B, one E. Okay, what else? I have about 36 people here. So let's get some more answers. 10 to the power 7, so another C. So I have more takers for C, but I do have takers for B and E. What else? Other folks? Okay. So the correct answer here is choice C. Okay, so let's figure out where you may have made a mistake here. So I'm going to go back to my screen here. So product of all prime numbers less than 20. Now, is closest to which of the following powers of 10? Now we have closest to which of the following powers of 10, right? So that means we can estimate. Plus, when we look at the answer choices, each answer choice is an order of magnitude larger than smaller than the previous one, right? You're starting from 10 to the power 9 all the way to 10 to the power 5. So it's a pretty large gap over here, which means that estimation is acceptable over here. So that's the first inference that you should have drawn here. Now, product of all prime numbers less than 20, write down all the prime numbers. Don't shy away from doing this grunt work, okay? You only have a handful of numbers, write those down so that you can visualize how to take the product, because definitely you're not going to calculate the exact product, but you definitely need to group things. And what's the magic of grouping over here? You make tens, as many tens as you can. So you pick up 2 and 5, right? Then you pick up 3 and 7, that gives you 21, but you approximate that to 20. Then you take your 11 and you estimate it to be 10. Okay. Take your 13, round it down to 10. Take 17, round it up to 20. Take 19, round it up to 20. Okay. Now, how many tens do you have over here? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 6 tens. Okay. But you also have 2 over here, another 2 over here, and another 2 over there. So you have an 8 here. 8 will again be approximated, rounded up to 10, which means you have 10 to the power 7. Okay, the mistake that some of you did by selecting choice D was that you basically did not consider this 8 over here. Very easy question, but a very, very significant trap that some of you may have fell into. Okay, so I do see some D's over here. Okay, all right, so what's the learning from this question? Again, from the standpoint of this question, relatively straightforward, nothing much going on, but we just had to draw these inferences as we are solving it. Okay, so very, very important. And again, drawing these inferences from the standpoint that approximation is absolutely fine. But as you can see, there isn't much of conceptual clarity that's needed over here. And again, that was by design, because what I wanted to I what the realization that I wanted all of you to have was that we need to be able to constantly apply these process skills. Okay, and these process skills over here, there is a new process skill which is manipulate. That how do you group things so that you get to the simplification over here, so that you are able to get to the answer that you're looking for, and drawing that inference over here that estimation is okay, and listing down all the prime numbers less than 20 so that you can visualize, so that you can really pick the right numbers. Okay, all right, so does this make sense to all of you? Do you guys get the sense of how is it that you should be thinking about solving these questions? Type in your comments over here before we move on to the next section, which is going to be word problems questions. Now, word problems would require some level of processing, okay, some additional level of processing. Okay, so I want you to first tell me, what have you learned from these three questions? Why do we also multiply by 8? Because you rounded 11, 30, you rounded 17 and 19 to 20, and we needed to take product, right? So you needed to, and then you had another 2 from the other sections that you had combined. 7 times 3, that gave you 21, which you approximated to 20. So you have those 3 2's coming about, which is why you needed to multiply those, because you are calculating the product, right? And that's where you got the 8. So I'm waiting for you all to tell me, what is it that you have learned so far, and from these three questions. Again, all of these questions are difficult questions. They are all 700 level plus questions. Thank you, Tiago. I'm glad you understood. I'm glad that you asked the doubt. Okay. Likewise, Kuldeep, I hope that you were able to understand. Uh, your answer over here, the confusion that you had. Again, I wanted to talk to you at that time, but you guys were answering question number 3. Question number 2, again, the reason why you got this doubt was because of the translation issue. So just go a little bit slow when you're reading question statements, okay? Shubhansh, visualization and take a moment to reassess as you might be missing the obvious. Absolutely, very well said. How about the others? Again, quant, simple. There is no rocket science here, there is no complex concepts that are tested here, but what is truly tested is how well can you synthesize information. Truly your comprehension is tested, right? How do you translate, how do you simplify, how do you manipulate, how do you infer? And if you think about it, all these are skills that are absolutely essential to how you perform during your MBA and post your MBA. Okay, each one of these skills, and GMAT is a beautiful test that tests all these skills not only in quant, also in verbal, and also in data insights. Okay, just to varying degrees, and again with different kinds of data sets. Okay, Kuldeep, to read each word of the question very carefully. Very well put together learning, Kuldeep. And then Urja is saying take a few seconds to read the question and then proceed step by step to get the answer. Very well said. Very good. Yes, Shubhansh, these are all 700 plus questions. These are official questions. These are all difficult questions. Okay. All right, then. We are now going to move to, we'll take up because our 1 hour is coming up. I may be able to take 2 more questions. Okay. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to solve both of these questions, one question at a time. Okay. And yeah, let's proceed. I am going to share my screen here. Yeah, go ahead. Again, don't put your answers till the time you're seeing the question statement on the screen. As soon as I pop up on the screen, that's when I want you to put in the answers, okay? I'm going to give you 2 minutes here. Sorry about that. All right, so I see a C over here. I see E. I see 8 over here as well. Then I see B here. Okay. Voice is muted. Yeah. Now you guys, now I should be audible, right? I see E. Okay. So very few people have selected choice E as the correct answer. So E is indeed the correct answer. So Sarit, Cameron, so you guys are correct. Urja, you're also correct. Rishikesh, you're correct. But there are folks who've selected choice B as well and certain other choices. All right. So let's quickly go through this and understand where is it that you faltered. Okay. Now, this question does require um, a lot of translation. That goes without saying. It's a word problem question. So it is obvious that there are going to be a lot of opportunities to basically do translation. So Jorge is back, and whenever you're solving word problems, always make sure that you visualize. Insert yourself in the scene. That is the easiest way to solve a word problem question. In fact, that's the easiest way to solve any kind of GMAT question, not just word problems questions. Okay, insert yourself in the scene. Okay. So, a balance that was so Jorge's bank statement showed a balance. Now, the balance was greater than what his record showed. What does that mean? Balance is the actual in the bank, right? So, immerse yourself in that scene. The balance that I actually have in the bank, that was more than what the records were showing. What does that mean? This means that I actually paid less, right? So the actual payment was less than the recorded payment, or in other words, Jorge must have incorrectly recorded a larger number, right? But he would have done the actual payment that he made. That's another way to say it, right? Which means that the check was written for x dot yz. The actual payment that was made was sorry, the check was written, the actual payment was actually made, was what the check was written for, x point yz, but it was recorded incorrectly. So the red part is the incorrect one, and that's the larger one, which means x point zy minus x point yz is equal to 0.54. Okay, that's what you have over here. It was 54 cents greater. Now, what we have to figure out is what could be the value of z. Okay, that's what we need to find out. So, which means we'll have to figure out the constraints around the value of z given this. Okay, and this is where you have to retrieve the appropriate concepts. Okay, so your job of translation and visualization ends with you getting this equation. Okay, after this, what you have to do is you have to now retrieve the appropriate concepts to see how can you solve this. What else do you know? Is it that there are three variables and just one equation, or is there something more to it? There's definitely something more to it, and that is the place value concept. So you need to retrieve the right kind of concept over here. What does that mean? Again, this is not just a simple equation. Here, what I'm doing is z by 10 plus y by 100. So I'm simply translating what point zy means, okay? Minus y by 10 plus z by 100. Again, what does point yz mean? I'm translating that over here is equal to 5 by 10 plus 4 by 100. And x, obviously, at the units place is going to get cancelled out. So essentially, now what you have is, instead of a complex looking statement up there, now what you have is an equation, one equation in two variables over here. Okay, you simplify that, what you get is z is equal to 6 plus y. Okay, can you still solve it further? Absolutely. Why? Because your y and z are not any numbers. Y and z are digits, right? And digits have these constraints imposed on them. What are those constraints? That they can be all the way from 0 to 1, right? 0 to 9. So now you, with this constraint that z is equal to y plus 6, you start working out the values of y, and then you see corresponding to y, what would be z. So you just start working your way from 0 all the way to 9, and see till what point can you go. Okay, so when y is 0, z is 6. When y is 1, z is 7, 2, 8, 3, 9, 4, 10. You cannot have that as a value. So these are the only four possibilities over here, which means that z can be 6, 7, 8, or 9. Now you look at your answer choices. The question is asking what could be the value of z. Amongst these answer choices, 6 is the only one that is a possible value of z, and that is what the answer is. Okay, got it? So again, in this question, I want all of you to write down what is it that you have understood from this question. Those of you who answered it incorrectly, why did you answer it incorrectly? Okay, were you not able to translate? So was it that you were not able to get to this point? Okay, or was it that you were not able to do all this concept retrieval and get to the point that z is equal to 6 plus y? Or were you not able to then process this information and see that, okay, what are all the possibilities of the value of z? Okay, so 1, 2, or 3, tell me which step did you falter at? And while you guys type that, I'm going to set up the next question here. I'm going to skip this one uh, and go to the last question here. That one is more interesting. This one here. Can we consider z is equal to 3? No, z will not have a value of 3 at all because that's not one of the possibilities. Sorry, I'm going to go back to the question. See, z cannot be 3. So you cannot consider that. No, Kuldeep, I think what you're doing is you're trying to fit the value of uh, x and z based on 0.54. Okay. Again, you have to go step by step and basically work it out like that. Okay. Siyash, what are you not able to process? You were not able to process the information and get to x point zy minus x point yz is equal to 0.54. So again, the process skill that you need to work on is translate. Okay, so that's what you need to work on. Okay, so concept retrieval didn't even come into the picture in your processing because you were not able to get to this point. So that's a translation issue. Okay. Okay, what else? So, Kuldeep, when you're saying can we consider z is equal to 3, in your scenario, it's y that is equal to, z is equal to 9, z is not equal to 3. So understand that part here. Okay, because you have x point zy. Got it? So here when you're working this out, and thank you for showing me that working out, x.93, 9 corresponds to z and 3 corresponds to y. So your z is 9, your z is not 3. Okay, which is why you are, again, 3, which is why you selected choice B as the correct answer. So I think what's happening is that you were trying to come up with combination of numbers wherein you swap the numbers and you get 54 as the difference, right? But while doing that, so you were trying to fit in that. Okay, but while doing that, you didn't observe that z and y are not interchangeable here. So you inadvertently selected the possible value of y instead of a possible value of z, which is where instead of just randomly picking numbers, make sure that you work out the constraints the way I have shown over here. That's a lot more scalable method. Okay. Again, as we are solving questions, we should always make sure that we are using as scalable methods as we can. Okay. There are multiple ways of solving questions. That goes without saying. Okay. No, Kuldeep, that's not the right thing. Okay. It is x point zy minus x point yz. So you've written exact same thing, x point yz minus x point yz, it's x point zy. So again, go back and make sure that you translate properly, Kuldeep. Okay, so a quant question can be solved in multiple ways, right? And you can get to that particular, the answer to that particular question in multiple ways. Now, when you come up with multiple solutions or when you see multiple solutions, always make sure that you pick the one, even if you may not have used the scalable solution in your question. I would still always suggest that pick the one which is scalable, that can be applied to other questions. Okay, so make sure that you do that. All right. Okay. We are already at that 1 hour mark, but if you guys, let's just solve one more question and then compile our learnings, right? So let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen once again, and we'll solve this question. Yeah. It's a very interesting visualization question. Okay, I'm going to give you this one. I'm going to give you 2.5 minutes to solve this one. Okay. All right. Almost 3 minutes for this question. So put in your answers. Athar was saying C. Okay. What else do we have here? Any other choices? Let me show you the question once again. Kuldeep is also saying C. or D, Kuldeep, then. Okay, let me share the screen here. So, so Kuldeep, you're saying D then, okay, because 14 is D. Then I see another C, Rishikesh. Then I see Siyash is also C. Okay, good. All right, the correct answer is choice C. Okay. Um, so Kuldeep, you made a mistake over here. So let's go through the solution real quick. Again, it's a hardcore visualization question. So what you have is one side of parking stall is defined by a straight stripe. So when you read this, first of all, in a word problem question, always try to break the passage down because you have a pretty big passage over here into smaller chunks. Apply strategic pausing technique that we teach in master comprehension course. That skill is required for verbal. That skill is also required for quant because it's, after all, comprehension, right? So that consists of n painted sections. So I've taken these n painted sections and I have actually put that over here with an unpainted section half as long. Now my unpainted section, I'm assuming, is has a width of d. So which means painted section will have a width of 2d, and this is what I get, and the total length over here is n. And this is where, when I get to see the total length of the stripe from the beginning of the first painted section to the end of the last painted section, it's 203. Little weird number, but I'm pretty sure there's a reason why they've used this number over here. Okay, so now I have to express this 203 in terms of my two variables, n and d. What's the linkage over here? This is where you have to visualize over here. If there are n painted sections, between any two painted sections there is one unpainted section, which means between any three painted sections there are going to be two unpainted sections. So which is where I get n into 2d, right, which is the thickness of the painted section, plus n minus 1, take 1 away from the number of painted sections, times d, that is equal to 203. Okay, so if you were able to get to this point, that means translation into mathematical, translation of word problem into a visualized figure, into a mathematical equation, you were able to do that correctly. Okay, now you simplify that, what you get is 203 is equal to product of two numbers, d and 3n minus 1. Right now, do you say that, okay, how do I solve this question? I have one equation but two variables. You are going to find this in a number of quant questions wherein you have one equation, two variables, and the question expects you to find the value of one of the variables. Okay, again, whenever you see that, don't fret, trust yourself, trust the test maker. There will definitely be some or the other concept that you can retrieve over here. Okay, and which is where you take a step back, put your pen down, don't continue working things out, and just understand, what is this saying? All this is saying is that 203 is product of two numbers. One of those numbers is d, another number is 3n minus 1. Then you go back into what is 203. Can you express 203 in terms of product of two numbers? Absolutely you can. 7 and 29, which is why when I said 203 seems to be an odd selection, right? It is a weird selection. Why? Because the test maker did not want very many combinations of product possible over here, right? So that is the reason for the odd choice, for the weird choice of this number over here, 203, right? 203 is 7 times 29, which is, now you consider two cases. Case number one, in which you take d as 7 and 3n minus 1 is 29. When you work this out, you get the value of n as 10, which is one of the answer choices. But if inadvertently you took case number 2 as the first case, that's absolutely fine. You work this out, you get n as a decimal number, which is not possible. Then you work out your other case and you get n is equal to 10, and that is the correct answer over here. Okay. So again, overall, translation, visualization, okay, two very, very important process skills that we've been seeing across in arithmetic in word problems. Number two, you translate the visualized figure into mathematical equation. Very, very critical again. We did the exact same thing with the previous question with Jorge's bank statement as well, right? And then you apply the your number properties, your knowledge of number properties. Here again, what you did was you did not get scared of one equation and two variables. You inferred. When you inferred, you then considered both the cases, and then you ultimately got to your answer over here. Okay. So again, the main thing over here is across every question that we have learned, that we have solved together, and we have solved 5 questions together with some variations of a couple of questions. Process skills. Process skills power your logical thought process. Okay. So you read question bit by bit, you take notes, you draw inferences, you retrieve appropriate concepts, and you continue your process till the time you don't get to the final answer. Okay. All right. So with this, we've come to the end of this session. Okay. I want to make sure that you all make a very meaningful error log. Okay. And an error log becomes very meaningful once you start using process skills, because process skills give you that language that ensures that you're not repeating the mistakes that you're doing. Okay. Never ever use the terminology, oh, I made a silly mistake. Okay. Never ever do that. Okay. So very, very important. Okay. All right, then. I'm going to stop sharing here. I hope that you all enjoyed this session. Definitely tell me what are your learnings from this session. And I welcome you all to try out EGMAT. Every question on the platform is solved using process skills, just the way I walked you through all these solutions here. That's exactly how we go through each and every learning activity on the EGMAT platform, whether it's verbal, whether it's quant, whether it's DI. So I welcome you all to try out the free trial. And again, if you have any questions, you can write to me at payal@e-gmat.com. You can follow me on LinkedIn and on Reddit. And yeah, that's about it. So I would welcome all of you to tell me what your key learnings from this session were, and so that, and what other problems you're facing in quant. In the next session, we'll be going through algebra, and we'll be following similar approach wherein we'll be solving questions. Again, with algebra, I would want you all to be more conceptually ready, because algebra definitely requires that conceptual ability, right? So definitely. So all right. Definitely, Subhansh. See you soon. But I am really looking forward to the learnings that you guys have had from this session, because that's very important, right? I mean, I want to make sure that you all got the learnings that this session was intended to communicate. So I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to write down your learnings, and then we will say bye-bye. All right, then. Wish you all the very best for your preparation. Happy learning, and see you all soon. Bye bye.